Imagine breaking your leg 50,000 years ago. There is no hospital nearby. There is no cast, and nobody is coming over the hill with a stretcher. Your group may have to move before the weather changes. Food is already hard to find. Now you cannot hunt, carry much, or even stand without help. The obvious ending is that they leave you behind. Ancient bones suggest that, at least sometimes, they did not. Archaeologists have found people who lived for years after serious injuries. Others reached old age with missing teeth, damaged joints, severe hearing loss, or bodies that made travel difficult. Their skeletons preserve damage, but they also preserve healing. Something happened between the injury and the grave. That leaves us with an uncomfortable question. Why would a small group, never far from hunger, spend scarce food and time on someone who could no longer work in the usual way? Because they were kind is tempting, but bones cannot tell us what a person felt. What they can show is that prehistoric survival did not always belong to the strongest body in camp. Sometimes it belonged to the people around that body too. You may have heard a story about the anthropologist Margaret Mead. Someone supposedly asked her to name the first sign of civilization. She answered, according to the story, that it was a healed human thigh bone. A wild animal with a broken leg would die. A human whose leg healed must have been protected and fed. It's a great quote. Nobody has found reliable evidence that Mead said it. The story keeps circulating because the logic feels right. A major fracture can take months to heal. During that time, an injured person may need water brought to them. They may need food, protection, or help moving when the camp moves. Still, a healed bone proves only that healing occurred. It doesn't tell us how. That person might have been tougher and more adaptable than we imagine. They could change the way they moved, use a tool for support, stay near familiar resources, or take on work that did not require two good legs. Help from others may have mattered, but so may personal skill. This is where many stories about ancient disability go wrong. They turn a person into a burden first, then praise the group for keeping that burden alive. Real people are messier than that. Someone can need help in the morning and be the most useful person in camp by afternoon. One early clue comes from Dmanisi, in what is now Georgia. About 1.8 million years ago, an older member of an early human population lost nearly every tooth. The empty sockets had healed, so this person lived for some time after the teeth were gone. On the surface, the case seems simple. Other people must have prepared soft food and fed them. Perhaps they did. But a toothless primate is not automatically helpless. Marrow, brains, ripe plants, and naturally soft animal tissue do not require much chewing. The Dmanisi individual may have chosen food carefully. The group may have shared access to it. We cannot separate those possibilities cleanly. Even so, access matters. A person does not have to be spoon-fed to benefit from other people. Being allowed near a carcass, being given time to eat, or simply not being pushed away may be enough to change the outcome. More than 1 million years later, a Neanderthal named Shanidar left much stronger evidence. He was found in Shanidar cave in northern Iraq. He lived roughly 45,000 to 35,000 years ago and died between about 35 and 45 years old. In his world, he was an older man. His skeleton reads like a list of things that should have shortened his life. An injury damaged the left side of his face and may have reduced vision in one eye. His right arm was severely wasted, and the lower part was missing. Problems in his right foot and leg probably gave him a pronounced limp. Later research found heavy, bony growth inside both ear canals. He would have had major hearing loss, possibly profound on one side. Now put him back where he lived. Shanidar Cave sits in steep country. Travel demanded balance. Hunting large animals brought people close to hooves, horns, and panic. If your hearing was poor, danger could be near before you knew where it was coming from. Yet Shanidar survived his injuries. He did not last a few days after the damage. He lived long enough for his body to heal and adapt. For years, popular accounts described him as a helpless Neanderthal kept alive by a compassionate group. More recent work on disability has questioned that picture. His left arm was powerful. He may have processed materials, handled tools, gathered food, or moved through the landscape in ways that his skeleton cannot reveal. We do not need to choose between independence and care. Shanidar 1 could have contributed to the group and still needed support. That is how dependence usually works, including now. Very few people are completely self-sufficient. We just hide the help inside jobs, roads, kitchens, medicine, and other systems that feel ordinary because we grew up with them. Shanidar 1 was not a strange exception among Neanderthals. La Chapelle aux Saints 1, found in France, also reached older adulthood. He had lost teeth and lived with extensive wear in his joints and spine. Other Neanderthal skeletons contain fractures that healed long before death. A 2018 review argued that care for illness and injury may have been a normal part of Neanderthal social life rather than a rare burst of mercy. Their care would not have looked like modern medicine. A useful response might be cleaning a wound, bringing water, guarding someone while they slept, or slowing the next move by a day. Almost none of that survives in the ground. The bone keeps the outcome. The bedside disappears. A small fragment from Cova Negra in Spain takes the question beyond injured adults. The fragment came from the inner ear of a Neanderthal child who lived for at least 6 years. Researchers found abnormalities consistent with Down syndrome. The diagnosis is not certain because it rests on one piece of bone, but the physical effects may have included severe hearing loss and serious trouble with balance. A 6-year-old already needs adults. A child who struggles to hear, balance, and move safely may need much more attention, especially around fire, cliffs, water, and large animals. The researchers argued that one parent may not have been able to provide all of that support alone. If their interpretation is right, the child lived inside a wider circle of care. This case is difficult to explain as a simple trade. An injured adult may already know hunting grounds, tool-making, weather, plants, or social relationships. A young child has no guaranteed future value. The people helping that child could not know what would be returned to them later. That still doesn't give us access to their emotions. Perhaps they acted from love. Perhaps family duty made the decision automatic. Maybe several people helped for different reasons and never discussed any of them. Archaeology cannot recover a motive as neatly as it recovers a tooth. It can, however, show us the conditions people faced. Large animal hunting produced meat and broken bones. Rough ground turned one bad step into months of recovery. Childbirth could remove a healthy adult from daily work. An infection could weaken the strongest hunter in camp within days. Everyone was one accident away from needing patience from somebody else. In that setting, caring for an injured person was more than generosity. It gave the whole group a reason to trust the group. A hunter could take a necessary risk without assuming that one mistake meant abandonment. Parents knew that a difficult child still had a place. Older people could remain part of camp after their bodies slowed down. There was another practical reason to keep them. Strength is useful, but it isn't the only work a human group needs. Someone who cannot chase prey may still repair tools, prepare hides, watch children, recognize a weather change, or remember where water was found during the last dry season. We cannot assign any of those exact jobs to Shanidar 1 or the Dmanisi individual. Their skeletons do not come with resumes. The point is that usefulness takes more than one physical form. Romito, too, shows that especially well. She lived in southern Italy around 12,000 years ago and reached adolescence with a rare genetic condition that greatly shortened her arms and legs. Researchers once described Romito too as male. Genetic analysis published in 2026 identified her as female and found that the adult woman buried closely beside her was a first-degree relative, perhaps her mother or sister. Crossing rough country would have been hard for her. Limited movement in her elbows and hands probably complicated everyday tasks. Yet her diet and nutritional condition resembled those of other people buried at the site. She was not surviving on whatever scraps remained after everyone else ate. At least from the evidence preserved in her body, she shared the group's food well enough to grow into her teenage years. Her life probably involved help. It probably involved adaptation too. The two ideas belong together. We tend to picture prehistory as a ruthless test of physical perfection. That makes for a clean story, but it is not what archaeologists keep finding. They find bodies that aged, bodies healed badly. Some moved differently from birth. Many of those people kept living among others. Care cost something. Sharing food meant less food for somebody else that day. Waiting for an injured person could delay travel. Watching a child closely took attention away from other work. Abandonment had a price as well. A group that discarded people after every serious injury would lose experienced members. It would also lose trust. Why take the dangerous position in a hunt if a broken ankle turns you from a partner into a problem? Why invest years in learning from an older person if age will push them out of camp? Care made risks survivable. It allowed people to do dangerous things together without treating every accident as the end of membership. So why did ancient humans care for injured people? There probably wasn't one reason. Affection mattered. Family obligation mattered. A recovering person might still have knowledge or skills that no one else possessed. Most of all, nobody stayed strong forever, and prehistoric people had more reminders of that than we do. These bones do not prove that the ancient world was gentle. Plenty of injured people died, and some may have been abandoned. The survivors show only that another outcome was possible, and that it happened across very different times and human groups. Long before hospitals or written rules, people were already adjusting around bodies that had changed. Sometimes they shared food. Sometimes they slowed down. Sometimes the injured person found a new way to keep up. That was not a sentimental extra added after survival was secured. For a species built around long childhoods, shared food, dangerous work, and knowledge passed between generations, care was part of how survival worked. Which evidence convinces you most? An older person who survived years of injury? A child who needed unusual support? Or a disabled teenager buried beside her family?